Welcome back to another episode of Palisade Radio. Today we have a new guest to the show, none other than Robert Kiyosaki. You might know him better as the Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Robert, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Well, thank you, Colin. I'm excited about talking to you because you're a wild man and man after my own heart.
Yeah, I was just joking before we hit record that you're making me look bad. You're in a professional studio with soundboards and lighting, and rainy season is upon me here in Guatemala. It just got dark, so you can hardly see me right now. But anyway, we'll go for it. I saw you speak in Mexico, and one of the brave predictions that you made, and you made this back in a book in 2002, is that there's going to be a major happening or market crash in 2016 or before that. And I want to start the interview by you touching on how you came to that conclusion.
Well, 2016 is basically a mathematical prediction based upon stupidity. And the stupidity comes about with this thing called this 401k. And as you know, I don't particularly trust my government. I don't particularly trust Wall Street. I don't trust the Treasury or the Federal Reserve. So when in around 74 or 75, when I became aware of the 401k, I knew they were just trying to screw the worker as they normally do. And so a 401k is basically a tax. So when you walk into an American company, they say, well, which mutual fund do you want for your 401k? And then they give you this BS about, well, it's the company will match your money. So you put $100 and the company will give you $100. Well, that's BS because it's your $200. They're not doing you any favors, you know what I mean? So basically, it's like the 43 Tax Act, where they basically take your money before you get paid. And the poor schmo workers, I feel for them. They don't have any idea what's going on. So when my rich dad started looking at this 401k, because we don't trust the government, the flaw in it is that you must start withdrawing your money at a certain age, and that year is 2016. So as the baby boomers enter, it's basically a Ponzi scheme, when all of these guys with 401ks put the money in the account, what happens in 2016? The old guys start withdrawing the money. So how's the market going to go up when the money's coming out? So it's based upon basic actuarial tables on age. And so that's what I made the prediction on. But I also knew that the government was printing money through quantitative easing. And if you read the book Rich Dad's Prophecy, which is the book we're talking about, I said the other thing that would happen was terrorism would increase. Why does it increase? Because terrorism is cheap. It's very, very cheap. And it's very expensive for the United States to fight extended wars, which we're doing today. So 2016 was basically a guess based upon some mathematical formula, but it was also based upon stupidity of our government. So that's why 2016 is kind of the year. It may be 2020, but it is coming.
Yeah, well, you made that prediction back in 2002, and now that we're in 2015, I don't know how closely you follow the markets, but actually in the equity market right now, we've gone up for 7 straight years. People think the market is still going up when in fact over 50% of the stocks in the Dow are actually going down right now. The market's being carried up by less and less of these major companies. It's really remarkable, but it looks like to a lot of different people for a lot of different reasons, 2016 may be the year, and you might have hit the nail on the head there.
Well, I hope not, but if it is true, at least you have a few more months to get out or do something different. Because this next, I don't know if you saw Ron Paul, that guy's got guts, man. He's on CNBC saying 2016 is going to be much worse than 2007. And that's my prediction also. So if you're sitting there hoping the market's going to keep going up, you better take some lap around the rosary beads and pray, because you might get hammered. And that's really my concern. I hope I'm wrong. The job of a prophet is to be wrong so people can take action and not get hurt by this.
Well, speaking of Ron Paul, he actually made his holdings public a few years ago, and that was partially because he was a public servant. And he's lost a good amount of money the last few years, but I think 100% of his net worth was in about 10 different mining stocks. And that shows that that's a testament to how much he believes in real money. And he believes in gold and silver as somewhere to protect your money. I know that you're big into real estate. That's kind of what people know you for. But you're also big into gold and silver. Are you into the mining stocks as well?
Well, I've started several mining companies, so I understand the junior mining issue. And the reason, I've been in Peru for 20 years because that's where Barrick was, and Arequipa made the big play. I also started a mining company, a silver mining company in Argentina, and one in Canada. So I've been in the metals industry and all that, not because I'm necessarily into it, but I really wanted to find out how the stock markets really operate. And as you know, they're completely rigged 100%. So it was a great education. I still own shares of my mining stock, but I got really what I wanted was my education on how markets operate. I don't care if it's oil, gold, tech companies and all that. It's all manipulated. So exactly as you said, right now the stock market's hitting all-time highs, but the insiders are selling, they're not buying. So it's called a pump and dump. They pump up the stock market so the amateurs can come in, or the Fed comes in and with a plunge protection team to prop the market up so all the idiots think their retirements or college is safe. But the insiders are actually selling. So what they're doing is they're taking company funds, like GE takes company funds to prop up their stock, called stock repurchase. But what the CEOs are doing are selling their personal shares. So they're using corporate money to keep the market high, but the guys are pulling their money out, the personal money out, going to cash. So that's what's going on.
I don't know if you just saw the article that Peter Schiff put out a couple weeks ago, but without going into detail, the headline was, in 1964, the minimum wage was 5 silver quarters. In 2015, 5 silver quarters have a melt value of $15.15. And what I'm getting at here is you made a prediction a while ago that said savers will be losers. We used to tell our children save, and the money that you save will be something at the end. What do people do now that are working and trying to grow a nest egg?
Well, I would check the expiration date on their brain. When you go to the supermarket and you buy a carton of milk, hopefully you check the expiration date. Because if you drink rotten milk, you get sick. But most people do not check the expiration date on their ideas. And I've gotten in trouble for the last 30 years saying the worst advice is go to school, get a job, work hard, save money, and invest for the long term in the stock market and get out of debt. I mean, that's really stupid advice. Because what happened in 1971, as we all know, Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard, and then you could print money indiscriminately. So cash became trash, the dollar became debt, and yet people are saying to their kids, save money. I'm a lot older than you are, but I remember in 1970s, I could get 14 to 16% on my savings. And if I put my money into a certificate of deposit, a CD, with an S&L, which are out of business now, but an S&L would give me 14 to 16% plus a toaster. They actually gave me a toaster. Imagine that. That's how much your savings were worth. But when Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard, no, they don't want your money anymore. What they want are debtors, guys like me. Like I borrowed in 2014 and 2015 nearly $300 million, and nearly $500 million. And I just refinanced it from 5% to 2.5%. And since that's just the cost of money. The cost of debt is going down, and yet people say get out of debt. I mean, how effing stupid can you be? How effing stupid can you be to tell your kids to save money when they're not giving you any money for your savings? It's reverse savings now. There was ZIRP, right? Zero interest rate policy. Now it's NIRP, no interest rate policies. They don't want your money. They don't want your cash because they got too much of it. They printed too much of it. And yet they say to their kids, save money. You got to be nuts. You've got to be crazy. You've got to be a complete lunatic. That means check the expiration date on the ideas in your head. And today, you've got to check your expiration date probably every half an hour because things are moving so fast. So fast. Look at how many businesses are out of business today because they got wiped out due to technology or they moved the company overseas. So really, it's really our obsolete educational system and our corrupt government and the corrupt banking system and Wall Street, which I love dearly, because they make me richer. I'm on the 1% side, not the 99% side. So if you want to get to the 1% side, you better check the expiration date on your college education. That's all I want to say.
So for somebody, see, you had the foresight in 2008 when the market crashed, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you picked up a lot of real estate assets, and now you're going ahead refinancing those assets at extremely low debt levels. You're probably getting somewhere between 2 and 5%, and you're going to be able to grow substantially even in a bad market. What is a young person that just wasted 4 years going to college? Hopefully they don't have any debt. What are they to do to become the next rich dad, poor dad 30, 40 years from now?
Well, you might sue your school for malpractice. Because that's the new game of how you make money. You sue people, which is why you got to have asset protection. To answer your question about 2008, I was preparing for 2008 back in 1983. And if you read my books, as that actually was in 1973, I came back from Vietnam. And my rich dad said I should take real estate courses, not because of real estate. And people think I'm a real estate guy, but I'm not. Really, I'm a debt and taxes guy. You see, the more debt I have, the richer I get. And the more debt I have, the less taxes I pay. So if you understand that the 1% does not pay tax, they're also deeply in debt, but it's good debt that makes them rich. What the banks do is they give you a credit card, and then they tell you to have a FICO score, whatever that is. And then they make it really easy to deposit your money in a 401k. And they make it really easy to save money, and they screw you. And yet, these parents are telling their kids, oh, go to school, go to Harvard, get a college degree, get a job, save money, get out of debt, buy a house. And they're idiots. Everything has changed since 1971. The dollar is no longer backed by gold. Wake up and smell the roses. Today, every central bank is printing money. And this is the worst part about it is the G8 meeting is now a G7. Who was not invited? Russia.
That's right.
So we're going to go to war. That's the first sign of war. We say, hey, screw you. They dropped the price of oil, so Russia's now in recession. They're probably going into depression. Russia and China just signed a deal for a pipeline deal to pump oil into China. China's going to pump that oil into Southeast Asia. So just as that guy, Dr. Doom, said at the Cancun conference, was very well said. He says China has already won the war in Asia because Chinese are everywhere. If you ever been to Australia, New Zealand, you ever been to Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, and those countries, the Chinese are there, and the Chinese control the economy of Asia. So they may be in Malaysia, but it's Chinese running the economy, the same as Singapore. So Dr. Doom, Mark Faber, basically said China's already won. So we're now trying to do this PPT, I don't know what it is, but they want to do this trade agreement between other Asian countries and the U.S. They're just trying to fight China, and they're trying to fight Russia right now by not inviting Putin to the G8, but into the G7. Then you look at ISIS over here. I'm old enough to have seen the rout in Vietnam. I was flying over the DMZ, the militarized zone, and I watched and I saw the South Vietnamese army dropping rifles and running, just running. And then you look at what's happening in that city with Ramadi or something like that. Our Humvees were not heading for the front, the Humvees were heading back, and they're now selling their guns to the Taliban and ISIS and all this stuff. And then Obama goes on I'm not Republican or Democrat, but it's kind of entertainment. Obama says, well, the problem is not that they just for some reason can't find recruits. They can't get those guys to volunteer to fight for some reason. And that's the trouble when you have these last two presidents, Bush, Clinton, and Obama, who never went to war, and they really don't know what combat is like. So my friend, who is now a three-star general, he and I were roommates in Vietnam on an aircraft carrier. We're pilots. We're the only guys that have ever seen a full rout. Now, everybody has seen this rout in in Iraq. Well, the guys are running south and they're heading back to Baghdad. And my prediction is Baghdad's the next city to fall. There it is going to be such a major coup for ISIS, whether it's Sunni or Shia. They're going to kick our asses and take Saddam's capital back. And when you watch that, you're watching the stupidity of the American people because we don't understand what's going on in the world. We listen to our news, but our news is not the news, which is, I find it interesting you're living in Guatemala because you get better news about the U.S. outside the U.S. So what I see going to happen is not very pretty. Terrorism, as I said in my book, 2002, will expand because it's cheap. It's not only cheap, they're selling our weapons to, to our enemy. And these guys have CFOs and all that. They use their oil that they capture to fund the weapons. They're very, very smart, ISIS. Very smart. Much smarter than us, I think. And that's why I'm saying you should buy gold and silver, because eventually the tug of war between deflation and inflation, somebody's going to quit. And I think it's going to be hyperinflation. So that's why gold and silver makes sense to me.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about the news that you get inside the United States, and Russia is a perfect example. In the United States 6 months ago, the news was touting the fact that Russia's ruble was dropping and the interest rates were spiked to 17%. Nobody knows in the United States now that the ruble's been the best performing fiat currency over the last 6 months, or that interest rates are coming back down. Here in Guatemala, the vice president just got pushed out. The first time in Guatemalan history that a president or vice president has been forced to resign. And the word on the street of the people is that the United States pushed them out. And that's not a story to get into right now. But the United States is still trying to control the entire world. And as you said, they're losing the grip. So do you think that this crash that's coming in 2016 or 2020 is going to be the end for the United States as the police force of the world?
I don't know if it's going to be the end. I just think we better be prepared for it. I think, from 2016 to 2030 is going to be very tumultuous. It's more than just the U.S. It's the end of the industrial age, beginning of the information age. Today with a guy with a cell phone can kick the ass of the U.S. Army, because the cell phone is power. And so it's Mark Zuckerberg asked us to read. He says the end of power is the end of the United States. That's what he's talking about. And, because you're sitting in Guatemala, I was just down there I was in Colombia, Peru, and Costa Rica, and Panama. And I thought it was interesting that in Panama, the Chinese are talking about building a canal across Nicaragua, And so it forced Panama to spend $5 billion to build another canal to compete with the Chinese. And then I was down in Peru, and all the Peruvians just love the Chinese because they're talking about building a railroad from Argentina to Peru, which will make Argentina and Peru richer. And what does America send in? Hit squads. They send in the CIA to take people out. So, and then you look at China has already won the war in Asia. They don't really care about the islands, whatever they're talking about. So when you look at all that, you step back and you go, oh my God, here we are, we're killing people, and the Chinese are giving people money. And I was in Africa, in Cameroon, and it's a very, very poor country, and I saw these huge, trenchers going down the road, these little back roads of Cameroon, and what the Chinese were doing was dropping in fiber optic cable. And we sent hit squads, death squads. So, I was a former Marine. I went to the academy and all that, so don't call me unpatriotic, you sons of a bitches, you know what I mean? But I'm just calling it as I see it. And it goes all the way back. It's my book, Second Chance. It goes all the way back to, the Federal Reserve in 1913. And also the Federal Reserve and the IRS were all formed in 1913. Is that an accident or what? And then in 1943 was the Current Tax Payment Act. America up to that point was a tax-free country. Now they're the most severely taxed country going. So we're just stealing our wealth, and the American public just waves a red, white, and blue and says, "Yeah, we should be killing those guys in Iraq, and they're gonna take Baghdad and kick our asses." We're the laughingstock of the world. Everybody now knows that this guy Cheney lied about weapons of mass destruction. The French knew it, Italians knew it, the Germans knew it. but there was no weapons of mass destruction. So the point here on news is not telling us the truth. And that is really, really horrifying as an American, as a guy who fought twice in Vietnam, academy graduate, and I watched this country being sold down the road by incompetents who have no idea what they're doing. And that's what's terrifying. In 1960, President Eisenhower in his farewell address famously said, "Watch out for the military-industrial complex." And that's what's going on in the world today. The military, the CIA, the SEALs and all that, they're hit people. People hate us. We send out people to kill people. We should be building the canal or building a railroad across Argentina and Peru. But no, we send in hit squads. So I see that stuff and I go, why? What are we doing this for? And that's because I'm a former Marine Academy graduate. And I look, there's got to be a different way. We should spend our money making the world better, not killing people.
Yeah, I share the same sentiment, and people back at home will call me unpatriotic. I'm actually not patriotic. It was an accident of birth to be born in America, but it's something that one should be proud of because it was a country that once stood for something very great. And I have a little bit of insight into the Nicaragua Canal that was actually a monopoly that was first granted to Cornelius Vanderbilt back in 1850. Most people don't know this. And it never came to fruition at the time. There was a rogue American that went in and destroyed the entire country there at the time. And then back in the 60s, there was a monopoly once again given to the United States, and they forced Nicaragua to never build a canal because they didn't want it to compete with Panama. And it's a great thing to see a country like China come in with enough power to push the United States aside and get something done in the world that the United States is not the final say in everything. But on that note, go ahead.
China is spending our money that we printed and gave it to them, and they realize our cash is trash. So they're going and doing good with it, and they're actually making the world better in many cases. And we send in hit squads. There's something wrong.
It's remarkable. Well, Robert, I want to get just a little bit on your new book, Second Chance. You were selling it and signing away copies when I met you in Cancun a few weeks ago. And I've heard nothing but great reviews. I must admit, I have not had a chance to read it yet myself. What can you tell our listeners about the book?
Well, Second Chance is the real reason I wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad. But I had to tone Rich Dad, Poor Dad down because Rich Dad, Poor Dad came out in '97. And most people did not see this crisis coming. Like I said, I saw this crisis back in '83. And I knew we were going to go down. And then in 2002, I called it for 2016. In 2008, I was on Wolf Blitzer and all that. I was saying Goldman Sachs and Lehman Brothers were in trouble, and one would probably go down. As AIG went down, Lehman went down. Bernanke pumped up European money, banks with our money, and all this. It's just a corrupt organization, the Fed. Now you can bitch and moan, but Second Chance is about why it happened, why this is happening, and what you can do about it. So I'm not complaining about the Fed handing out money as long as they hand me some money, and they've handed me a lot of money. But that's because I have education that the average person does not have. That was my rich dad's education. And so Second Chance is about your second chance to rethink, the expiration date on your brain. Is thinking with old, obsolete ideas. So Second Chance is about the past, how we got into this mess, which is why I mentioned the Fed in 1913, the IRS in 1913, the Current Tax Payment Act in 1943, the 401k plan back in 1974. When you look at the progression, it's been this big cash heist of American wealth being shifted to the military-industrial complex for guys like Cheney, Halliburton, and those guys, Boeing, Lockheed Martin, and all that. So I can sit there and bitch and moan, or I can choose which side to be on. So years ago, my second chance was I decided I'd rather be a capitalist and not pay taxes, get the tax breaks that guys like Elon Musk get and Gates get and Jobs get, or I could be bitching and moaning and pay taxes. Which is your choice. So as you know, the rich don't pay taxes in America. The rich don't pay taxes anywhere legally because they're partners with the government. So I partner with the government by borrowing $300 million The government loves me. They don't want your savings. They want debtors because they can print the money they want. They need debtors because I put money back into the economy and they give stupid people a credit card and a FICO score. You know, when we sit there, well, which side do I want to be on? The FICO score guy or the guy that's borrowing millions of dollars? You know, and it's your choice. It's a free country. So second chance is about really, really evaluating the expiration date on your brain, your ideas. The book is full of charts and graphs, making it simple because it's not my opinions. The charts and graphs are federal charts and graphs. And so you can make up your mind the condition and the future of our country and the world. So I'm pretty optimistic. You know, I'm going to make even more money when the crash comes. But unfortunately, like I said, for those who are not prepared, gold and silver are probably the best investments. But you have gold and silver, two other precious metals, guns and bullets. The reason for that is I laugh about it, but my friend reminds me of this. He says, you rich guys can buy gold and silver. Poor guys buy guns and bullets. So if you understand that mentality is this gap between the 1% and the 99%, I'd rather have gold and silver and guns and bullets, which is why I don't live in California. I live in Arizona, where they really respect guns and bullets. So it's just a point of view. A second chance gives you a second chance to really look at the expiration date on the thoughts in your head.
Robert, on that note, it has been such a pleasure. Thank you for coming on. It was nice meeting you in Mexico and chatting with you again in this interview. And I'm sure all of our guests will be begging for you to come back next year when the crash has occurred and you're even richer.
Well, I give you credit for being a junior mining guy. There is, you know, I've been in Peru for 20 years chasing gold mines down there. And I was in Argentina and Canada chasing junior mining companies. And I love it. I love junior mining. It's the most exciting. It's a higher risk game, but it's the most exciting. So congratulations and keep living the dream, man.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it, Robert.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Think you understand the junior mining sector and you think that the participants in the mining sector, junior mining sector, are good people and kind people, hit the bid.
And the world is always going to need raw materials. It's going to need copper and gold and nickel and so forth.
Totally destabilized. Hey, troll, did you hear what's going on in Yemen? Or are you too stupid?